Hey, this is Pam Perry. How are you? How is everyone? Motivational Monday. We're getting started here. We're going to talk about branding, and it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. Let me look over here in the comments so that I can see those and get going here. All right. So, Boss Up Monday, Boss Network, one of my favorite, Kamika. Hopefully, she is here, and Cynthia. I am looking on my phone here. Hey, who was that? If you can put in the chat, if you can see me and hear me pretty good, I would appreciate it. And we'll get started. You can put in the chat. Give you a little bit of background. That is me. All right. So, in the comments section, if you can put in where you're from, what city, and that will give me an idea who I'm talking to and where you're from. I am Pam Perry, and I am from Detroit, Michigan. That's one of the things. So, we're going to talk about branding. And branding is important because it gives you one of those things of a know, like, and trust factor, right? So, in order for you to sell more, you do need a brand. Those that have a good brand sell more because it's like, I've heard of them, I know them, I like them, and I trust them. So, that's what we're going to talk about today of how to accelerate that brand so that you can actually make more sales. So I'm going to go into the Facebook group, if you give me a second, as well, so I can see what's going on over there in the Facebook group because it may be a little bit of delay. I'll take it down a little bit so I don't hear my delay, but I'm going into the Boss Network group and see. There I am. I do see it. All right. Okay. So we're good. So one of the first things I want to talk about, like, what is branding, right? Hey, there we go. All right, good, good, good. I was a little bit early, so I apologize. I like to be on time. So, what is branding? So, the whole point of a branding is, like I said, it does make sales easier because without sales, you don't have a business. And so, we're all about business, right? So, branding is a process of really building up a positive emotion that is what makes you distinct in the marketplace. So, when you think about a brand, say a brand like a Coca-Cola, or a brand of a Disney or a brand of a Nike, it conjures up something in your mind. So why would you buy a Nike versus, I don't know, a Skechers, right? So depending on how it's positioned in the market. So that's one of the things. In short, it's really about the action that it takes for your reputation. That's really what it is. Branding is a part of your reputation. So we're gonna talk a little bit like, why should you listen to me? Who is this lady? Who is Pam Perry? Blah, blah, blah. What does she know about branding? Well, for one thing, I've been doing this for a couple of decades, maybe 25 plus decades. My company, PamPerryPR.com, we work with authors and speakers around the country. I think roughly, I haven't taken a count, but if I look at my list of my clients over the years, it's roughly almost 4,000 people. Yeah, it's been a lot. And so over the last 20 years, I've been an entrepreneur working with them, helping them build their platform, building their brand. Hey, thank you so much at PamPerryPR.com and helping them build their brand as a publicist, helping them promote. And then recently as a publisher of Speakers Magazine, which Kamika was in as well. So Speakers Magazine is the thing that I do as well. So I'm a publicist and a publisher, and my name is Pam Perry. So that's a lot of P's, right? So you got a lot of P's. So why should you listen to me? I've helped a lot of people build their brand and really pivot from a brand that they had to a new brand. So that's kind of like a rebranding. It's like, ooh, how do you do a rebrand? So before we get into really my presentation, I'm gonna give you some, like, really some definitions. It's not gonna be like school, but kind of like school. Because in order to understand the concept, I have to give you some definitions, right? So the first one is like the brand promise. Like, what is a brand promise? So you hear people talk about, what is your brand promise? Basically, it's what what happens when, and I'll give you an example of all of these so that you could think about Disney. So Disney is like the brand that I'm going to give the example for, because just reading a definition is boring, but then giving an example from Disney. So a brand basically is really the set of expectations, like I said, of what people expect from you, right? So what do they say about Kamika, or what do they say about Cynthia? What is a brand that they are conjuring up in someone's mind? What do people say about them when they leave the room? You heard Bill Gates say that before. So really the whole thing we're going to go through is like what Disney does. So what is a brand promise? So really from the time that Disney did their first little mouse, one of his core things that he really wanted to promise is that he wanted to create happiness through magical experiences. That was his thing. And it really hasn't, 60 years later and billions of dollars later, that has pretty much has been his mainstay. The cartoons, the movies, the records, Disney Plus, all of that, right? They started with that promise and they delivered on that promise over and over again. That was his brand promise, to provide magical experiences. So then you go, it's like a brand identity. What is that? The brand identity defines how the person who is creating the brand, how they want to be perceived. All right. So that's a brand identity. So the brand identity is like all the collection of everything in your brand that you want to portray to the customer. All right. So it's everything. So for Disney, their brand identity is for families and kids, and they are providing their identity for them is things that is wholesome, that's fun, again, it's magical, it's very decent, it's never going to be lewd or crude, right? So those are going to be the things for the brand identity for Disney. You'll come to expect that from Disney, right? That's like one of the things. So brand promise, brand identity, and then there's a brand personality, which is a whole nother thing. But I'll just quickly go over brand personality. There's basically 5 core brand personalities. So and this is in all marketing books basically. There's sincerity, excitement, confidence, sophistication, and ruggedness. And so really Disney fits in like that sincerity lane, right? Basically it's sincere. Sincerity is someone that's down to earth, honest, cheerful, friendly, versus excitement would be like Red Bull, daring, something like that, the spirited, like Coca-Cola. Then there's competence. Like, what would competence be? Someone that's reliable, someone like Amazon, something like Google. So you want that to be reliable. Comcast, you want that to be reliable. Sophistication, we all love the sophisticated brands, right? Those are like the luxury brands. Those are like the Tiffany's, or those are the luxury brand. Those are the Coaches, the Gucci, the Fendi. Those are the kind of things. It's charming, it's glamorous, it's feminine. Those are type of brands. So that's really, and then the last one is like rugged, outdoorsy, Timberland boots, Harley Davidson. People who love Harley Davidson, it's a rugged kind of macho thing, right? Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. And so, you're looking at those different brand personalities. So Disney has settled on, we're going to be sincere, we're going to be down to earth, honest, wholesome, and cheerful, right? That's it. So then there's a brand tone. Like, what is the tone of of brand? What is it, the kind of thing, like their tone is really enchanting. You look at it, it's always something like it permeates. If you go to Disneyland or Disney World, it permeates every touch point of their company, right? It's their tone, it's enchanting, it's magical, it's their theme line where dreams come true, right? It's all of that. That is really their tone. Their tone gives you that feeling, or that gives you a little bit more of their identity, but it also helps you them for you to understand who they are. It makes you want to trust them. So then there's the brand positioning. Brand positioning is really what your company does, for whom, and what makes it different. So people, you do need to know your brand positioning, because that's like, how are you different in the market, right? How are people really defining you? So Disney's, their brand positioning is all around happiness and dreams. They want to create experiences. So many people, when they think of customer service experiences that are top notch and fun, they'll think of Disney, because they have purposely positioned themselves in the market that way. So then there's the brand association. A brand association is basically like when you are on a game show, if you say like soft, you think of Cottonelle, or you think of athletics, you think of Nike, you think of orange, you think of Sunkiss, right? So those are the things where if you mentally have an association with a brand immediately of what someone says. It's the thoughts that pop in the mind when a person thinks about a brand. So if you say my name, what do people think of? Pam Perry, PR. Okay. It's like Pam Perry PR. She works with speakers and authors. Why? Because she has Speakers Magazine, speakers and authors, right? So those are intentional parts of my brand association that I wanted to put together. Same thing with Disney. One of the things that they want to have associated with them is part of their brand story, which is next. But you think of Disney, what do you think of? What do you think of when you think of Disney? Mickey Mouse, right? People are like serious about Mickey Mouse, right? It's like, oh, don't mess with Mickey. It's kids are loving Mickey. It's just like, my daughter, when she was young, was like, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse. So it's what pops in the consumer's mind thinking about your brand. Now, what does Mickey have to do with that? McDonald's, you may think of the golden arches, right? So those are just brand association things, or you may think of colors or whatever, but it's immediately what people think of. So the brand story is really the secret sauce, right? That is the secret sauce. And that's the one where people build an affinity for your brand. So an affinity for your brand, meaning like they get to know you, a personality. So we didn't know Walt Disney. Obviously, he was not around when I could ask him anything. I couldn't watch a YouTube of him, right? So I didn't know his brand story, but we do know it because people were telling the stories passed down. But it's really the series of events that spark your company's inception, and then you express that narrative throughout everything that you do today. So if you think of Kamika, so Kamika, one of the things, Kamika Smith, the Boss Network, she talks about how she had her brand story, talks about how she started as a teacher and she loved to bring together other successful sisters. And she started that just genuinely out of a heart, what she wanted to do. She then took it online and she continued to grow it and grow it. Networking was the key. She had some books around that same thing. All of the tenets around her brand are always the same. Then she reached out with the Boss Network and to the Boss Network on campus. So you can have a brand, but it's always about the same promise and positioning, and people associate Kamika with certain things. So when you look at the branding of it, it's like, how did she do it? It was over time. No like and trust factor. Trust takes time. So she was consistent in her messaging over time. And so the secret sauce of any brand is a story that you'll be able to tell. And you'll be able to tell that story over and over on radio, television, newspapers, magazines. That is the part for a publicist, someone like me, that we need to hear in order to tell your brand story. So another example of a brand story, and I'll get to that later, is Sarah Blakely, right? From Spanx, the lady who made Spanx. And she had a brand story where she was like, one day I just decided to sit at the kitchen table and the idea came to me to cut the legs off these pantyhose. And she went through a whole thing about trying to create these pantyhose. And she actually ended up on Oprah. Oprah was like, yeah, I love your idea. And Oprah helped. She said Oprah inspired her the idea, whatever. And eventually, billions of dollars later, Sarah Blakely is the woman that talks about her brand and how it got started and how nobody believed in her when she first got started. No one believed that, these Spanx things. So she spent a couple of years, and once she actually did get the product in certain stores, she actually went to every single store for 2 years to sell the product. She has a whole little, I guess you would say, chutzpah way where she did it. She would go to all the different cities. She would call up friends, and then the friends would meet her in the store, Neiman Marcus specifically, and would listen to her pitch. And they in the crowd would like gather, but really the crowd of her friends. Then other people will gather around, and she'll talk about these Spanx and how they make you slimmer and this and that. Anyway, long story short, she was selling a lot of these Spanx, billions of dollars worth. Okay, very unconventional way. But her brand story is what's interesting. Yeah, she could have just put the product out there and just say, hey, it'll help you get slim. But she had a story around with it. She even talked about her even before. She said Spanx really began before Spanx was really even a thing. It started when she was 16 years old, and talked about mindset and how she knew in her mind, from the law of attraction. She was listening to a lot of those tapes and videos and things like that at 16 years old. And she basically, that's part of her brand story. How when you now see her on the cover of, she was like Forbes, I think 30 under 30, making millions of dollars. She said she saw that before she before it even became a reality. So, anyways, that's part of her brand story. That whole part of law of attraction thing, and that's why she was on Oprah because Oprah loves that too. So that's kind of fits. So if your brand were a story, if it were a Disney movie, would you go see it? So think about your brand story. Would you go see your brand story? Is it interesting enough? Is it intriguing enough? Is it enough for someone like me as a publicist to pitch it out to the media? So ask me, ask yourself, is it? Is it something that you definitely can post and your comments in there to say, if your brand were a story, would you go see it? All right. And then the last part, you got you've got the identity, the positioning, association, you have your personality, your brand tone, but the main thing that you want out of everything, knowing this, is brand loyalty. And that's where I would definitely see boss. Yes, exactly. The thing is brand loyalty. Brand loyalty is really that emotional attachment to the brand. That's when you have the super fans. That's when you have people wearing the t-shirts, we wearing the belts, where they are drinking out of the coffee mug. They are, someone people love Starbucks so much they're just like fanatical about it. It's like I love Starbucks, or I really love Harley Davidson. There's like a whole not only does Harley Davidson sell motorcycles, right? They also have this apparel that people love, and it's like they are just like really into their thing. So it's an emotional attachment. Customers who are loyal to a brand will continue to purchase. They will buy more products. They'll try new products. They'll tell other people, which is word of mouth, which is the best form of advertising. They'll persuade other people for that brand. They are down and out. Like there could be like a chicken sandwich is a chicken sandwich, but there's people that love Popeye, and then there's people that love KFC. Okay. And it just depends on the positioning of each one and how it is perceived in each one's mind. Yeah, you can say one tastes better, but it's still a chicken sandwich. So why is Popeye like when they had that chicken sandwich, people were like fighting over that chicken sandwich versus KFC? They got one too, but nobody really was fighting. So Disney is a trusted brand and makes sales easier. $200 billion in sales last year. And so if you have a brand name, you can sell easier and more often. So I'll talk a little bit about what takes a magical brand. What takes a magical brand? So those are just some of the definitions of like the different parts of branding. So what's the difference? And I want to get this clear. What's the difference between branding and marketing? Right. So people will say, well, I market all the time. I don't really need a brand. Branding is different because branding creates mind share, and marketing creates market share, so sales. But mind share is really where the branding is. It's a conception, it's a perception, it's really what people feel about it. Like I said, you got those super fans, and it's like, don't you talk about my Starbucks. I remember there was a Starbucks. People who love coffee, right? They love Starbucks. They may do Dunkin' Donuts out of a pinch, but if they are like super fans of Starbucks, they're going to buy Starbucks. So one time, Dunkin' Donuts, or was it McDonald's? I'm sorry, McDonald's decided to really like kick at Starbucks, and they did a campaign. This was years ago, and the campaign talked about $4 is dumb. $4 is dumb, meaning like $4 for a coffee was dumb. And they ran this in the state of Washington, like Seattle, Washington, Starbucks country. And they had these billboards up, but people were super fans about Starbucks. They don't care if it was $4. Oh my God. The agency that did the advertising for that particular McDonald's in that region had to really do a cleanup campaign because people really like, I'm a boycott McDonald's for talking about my Starbucks. And it's like, okay, McDonald's, you have a big brand. Don't slam anyone for anyone else's brand. $4 is dumb. There's been a lot of faux like that. If you all remember about um, when Jay-Z boycotted Cristal because Cristal was like, a lot of the rappers were drinking Cristal and champagne, and they were drinking this champagne, and all of a sudden Cristal, the CEO, came out and says, we don't really cater to that market. And basically telling the black people, we don't really cater to that market. They should drink Dom Perignon. And so basically, all the rappers and Jay Z had it says, you know what, we're not going to drink Cristal anymore, champagne. We'll drink Dom Perignon. Their sales flattened. People were at first excited about the brand, because it meant prosperity, and it, just $1,000 a bottle for this Cristal. But they were like, you know what? If you don't like us, we will switch and we will go and drink Dom Perignon. And that's what happened. So the difference between branding and marketing is money. Really, branding does give mind share. Marketing gives market share, right? So it's really, the branding is the art of communicating and really positioning in the mind. Marketing is the art of promoting and selling. It's really, it's could be direct mail, whatever, but it's how you get the message out in terms of marketing to create a sale. All of it leads to sale, but one is more direct than the other. So I wanted to make sure we got that clear in terms of what's the difference between marketing and branding. They do go hand in hand. They are sisters, but they're not twins. Okay. So let's talk about some of the best practices of the brand. So obviously, some of the solid brands that people love are Coca-Cola and McDonald's. Both of them are red. Both of them exciting. Both of them basically, sometimes they appeal to kids. They have this whole thing like, I need to do right by the people who love me. So Coca-Cola logo is notable. McDonald's notable, that kind of thing. Those are the good practices of the brand. Why? One is consistent. They have been consistent all the time. Yes, they do advertise a lot, but they also get into the heart of people as well. So when I say they get into the heart of people, people have a feeling about McDonald's because you maybe see them sponsoring certain things on sports shows, or there are different things that, in the community, that McDonald's does a gospel fest, right? Or there is a Coca-Cola sponsored event. It makes you feel, it's just pop. It's just hamburgers. But you know that if that brand believes in what you believe in, you're going to have a little bit more affinity for them. If they believe in the values and the things that you support, like McDonald's may support, give you a community grant for an event that you're doing, you'll have a little bit more affinity for them because you know that they support the things you support. The other thing that is really, really branding is everything is water. Water is water, right? But people who love certain water is water. So I was at Kirk Franklin this past weekend, and there was people had brought in water, and it was for like the people backstage, and water just for the staff, the ushers or whatever. Kirk Franklin was in Detroit, and so there was water. But then Kirk came in and he said he wanted water. What kind of water did Kirk have? He didn't have this kind of water. He had the water in the square box, in the square bottle. So Fiji water. And the water is water. There's smart water, there's Dasana, there's Aquafina, there's Evian water, there's so what makes a difference in this water? Again, it goes back to those definitions, right? The brand identity, the brand promise, the yeah, Fiji, of course, right? It's like, oh, so the brand personality of each of those waters are different. So you would say the Fiji water is the more sophisticated water, right? So that's the kind of thing. A rugged water could be something like Aquafina, like just give me some water, right? Nobody drinks tap water anymore, right? It's all about the branding of this water, which is a whole nother thing. So water is one of the things when you look at the different branding. If, like, what is the brand personality of each? What is the mindset of each water? Some people like water in glass. It's like, you know, Voss. Some people like this water because they think it's better in glass. So each one has its own position, and you would think like, okay, well, do I need to create another water? There is still. Think about Hint. Oh my God. That's, to me, I think that's like the biggest ripoff. It's like it's not even a real flavor. It's like a hint of a flavor. And this lady has just blossomed, in terms of millions of dollars of water with a hint of particular, it's like it's a smell of something. Anyway, so that water is a big thing about branding. But you can learn from each water brands how they're positioned, how each one of them are, how people have they're super fans about it, like the Fiji water. Like it was like you couldn't hand it Kirk when he said he wanted some water, hand him some water like this, and he had to get him the one in the square bottle. The other brand I was going to talk about, we talked about earlier, is Sara Blakely. So Sara is really built a $1 billion company. She was on the cover of Forbes. But one of the things about Sara is that as a woman entrepreneur, Sarah was very intentional about how she wanted to show up with her brand story. So her brand story, she started Kitchen Table, this kind of thing. But she didn't want to really be known as like just this woman who got lucky and got success. She really wanted to show herself as a real serious businesswoman, as a mentor to women that they can take their ideas, become the star in their own, you know, orbit. And she was at Stanford Business School. She always was in business publications. She wasn't in necessarily like Cosmopolitan and, the real lifestyle type of magazines for women. She was intentional to make sure that she was in business publications. That was intentional. So you can see how she was trying to position herself. Yes, as this young woman, because I think she started when she was 27 years old, but she also did want to be, maybe it's because of her age, she wanted to be known as more serious. So she didn't want any fluff pieces about what she was doing. She wanted to know she wanted people to know about her business prowess. So she made an intentional, yes, she would say that people would want to write about her and they could, but she was like, I'm not trying to be on the covers of those type of magazines. So you'll notice that she's on Inc. and Forbes and Entrepreneur, Fast Company. Those were intentional things on her part. So if you read a little bit more of her story, you'll kind of know that difference about her. There's some also too. I'm talking about big brands. So if you are someone who has a personal brand, if you're author or speaker, I deal with people who have personal brands. My Ready Set Go Speak is a program that deals with authors and speakers who want to build their platform or their personal brand. But then there's some other local brands that I'm really proud of that are from Detroit that have blown up. One is the Lip Bar. If you know anything about Melissa Butler, she has this lipstick, vegan lipstick, and her story is that it's grown just millions of dollars, right? Started right here in Detroit. She's from Detroit, and she was actually featured in the film called She Did That, along with Carol's daughter as well. But I love those two stories about Carol's daughter and Melissa Butler. One, they have the brand story that I was talking about that you can tell over and over again and still want to listen to it. Carol's daughter was a hair product. She named it after her mom. She's just Carol's daughter. And it really grew and grew. And she was doing flea markets and this kind of thing. And just like, we love those bootstrapping stories, right? Same thing with Melissa Butler and the Lip Bar. It's about how different it was, how she started, how she didn't have anything, no background in it, but her main brand story was she was on Shark Tank, and she told them her idea, gave them the pitch, really cute, and she basically said, as a Black woman, she wanted Black women to feel better because she said growing up, people were making her feel less than. And so, one of the things she just talked about is beauty in the beauty industry and how unsighted it is for women of color. So she went on the Shark Tank and they hated her idea. They made her feel less than. They were like, we think that's stupid. Why would anybody buy vegan? This and that. It looks dry or whatever they were saying. And it made Melissa just say, you know what, I'll show you. And she did. It's now sold everywhere. It's at Target, it's at Ulta, it's at different places that you can buy. I love that story. If you have not seen the movie She Did That, it's on iTunes, it's on Comcast, it's on YouTube or whatever. You should see that movie because it really is a boss movie, right? It's a boss movie. Carol's daughter, Lovey was in it as well. There's some other women in it, but there's another story that I really, really love, and it is Ellis Island Tea. And she's Jamaican, and the tea was created by her grandfather, I believe her grandfather from Jamaica. And this tea that she was trying to sell out the trunk of her car because she believed in it, ended up blowing up and is now national, right? She's got Ellis Island Tea. So she is another one. So I want to say that when you are a entrepreneur, in order for your brand to grow, you must be relentless and unwavering and have faith that can move mountains in your own brand. People will tell you no. People will tell you that's stupid. People won't support you. People won't endorse you in the beginning. They always want to get on the bandwagon when it's going right, when it's like really, really good. But at the very beginning, If you have an idea and you know that in your knower that there's something that you should be doing, go for it. Now, Ellis Island Tea, I mean, it took many, many long nights of her really figuring all this out. Same thing with the lip bar. Same thing with Carol's daughter. Even with Sarah Blakely, she said it took 2 years for her to go to market. She took $5,000 and was doing all these different things. All of them, even like a lady in Detroit that makes sweet potato pies, sweet potato sensations. She's been making pies for as a long time, like a couple of decades. But it wasn't until, and she just was consistent making the best sweet potato pies that she could. Her children grew up in the business. They were little and now they're like 25 years old, right? And they're now with her helping build this company stronger. It's called Sweet Potato Sensations. And she got a big break when Hillary Clinton, when she was running for president, stopped at that little store and said, "Hey, I want to have your sweet potato pie." So it was like a big deal. She was in front of the newspaper and all that kind of stuff. But hey there, hey Felicia, she was she was making those pies for 20 years. It wasn't like when Hillary Clinton stopped there that her pie store had just opened up. She was there for a minute. She was there for a minute. So with your brand, consistency is key. She made sweet potato pies. Then she moved into sweet potato cupcakes and sweet potato bread, sweet potato ice cream. It was all around sweet potato sensations, consistent. Yeah, she does have some chocolate things, but it's like, in terms of branding, I'm going to go to her for the sweet potatoes. That's when you know you have a brand. When people know you for something, they know that you're the best at it. So that's the thing. Lip bar, they do other makeup, but primarily it's lipstick. If you look at Carol's daughter, she has a hair product. She probably could go into other things. She has a brand now. People recognize her name. That's the thing. When you have a really good brand, you can come out with a new type of product. Typically, people will try it. Except for when Coke did one of their Coke products. I forgot, was it Coke Zero or something like that? Or one of those Coke products where people are like, we don't like that Coke. So they had to try it and then take it off the market. But people did try it and they let them know, like, this is not good. So you do want to have a brand because it does really make people have an affinity towards you, and it gives people a sense of know, like, and trust factor that is immediate. It's immediate. When people see, if I'm here in Detroit or if I go to Chicago, if I go to Starbucks, I'm gonna trust that brand because it's gonna be the same here as the same there. It's the brand promise that I know that they deliver every single time, no matter where I go, right? And so that's one of the main things. So the ultimate brand. Who is the ultimate brand if you think of someone, at least for me anyway? The ultimate brand is Oprah, right? Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey probably didn't decide. I read somewhere that she didn't start out to want to be a brand. She says, I wasn't trying to be a brand. She says, I was just doing me. So that's key number one. Authenticity is number one in branding. So if you want to accelerate your brand, always be authentic, be you. So Oprah didn't start out the Oprah that she is now, where we just call her Oprah and you don't have to say the last name. Sometimes you can just say O, right? Because it's the O magazine. But she is the ultimate brand. And I'll give you her definition, what she said the brand is. She says, let excellence be your brand. When you are excellent, you become unforgettable. So that's one of those things when you see, especially someone like just over the few years, well, couple of decades or so, 3 decades or so, she's grown from where she was in Chicago, starting out with just as a local television personality. Well, actually, she started out in Baltimore, but a local personality, she got on the main scene and became a billionaire. And now that's like a brand. How did she build that brand? And one of the main things, she was authentic, she was consistent, she never tried to do anything that was not inconsistent with her brand. Even when she did brand extensions to the radio podcast or doing Super Soul Sunday, uh, to O Magazine, her brand promise was always the same: to inspire people to positivity. She made a promise to herself that she would do that. That's part of her mission, part of her values. So the ultimate brand, if you're going to look at like a brand a person that became a brand, she's a good person. She's like, to me, she's like my Disney, right? She's like my Disney. So where do you start? And I'm coming down to the close here. So where do we start? We're trying to build our brand. Like, I want to accelerate my brand. How do I do that? Where do I start? Some inner work first. Like I said, Oprah was like, I didn't start out to be a brand. She just started out just wanting to be herself. So you start with your vision, your mission, your purpose, and your values. What are you here for? Starts with purpose. You start with your vision, mission, purpose, and values. On my particular Facebook page, I posted something from Dr. Miles Monroe that talked about vision and mission. Please go see it. Oh, I just miss him so much. But that particular thing is only like about 9 minutes, but he had that thing on point. So if you're trying to figure out your purpose, mission, and vision, obviously you can't figure out your values. You know what your values are. But that particular one, if you watch on my Facebook page on Pam Perry, you'll see that as well. But start with that. Do the inner work of what it is for anyone who built a brand. Ladies, we will be featured in our groups. Oh, okay. Yes, yes, that's good. So, start with that. That is really the crux of it. In my Ready, Set, Go Speak program, that particular module is probably the biggest part where I want people to do the inner work, where they just like they have to have the confidence too. Because like I said, when you start out with your business and your brand, there can be a lot of people to say, no, that's stupid, that's dumb. Why are you doing that? It don't take all that. So you've got to build yourself up to know your vision, your purpose, your mission, and be so, bulldog mentality about it, because that's what it's going to take. I've been doing this for 21 years. My first 5 years, I didn't have any mentors. I didn't know. A lot of people are saying, like, why don't you just give up? It's just, anybody trying to do that kind of stuff. Why you want to work with authors and speakers and help them promote books, especially Christian authors and speakers, this anyway. So if you have a vision, a purpose, and that kind of thing, stick with that. So that's where you start. Number one, defining your niche, deciding on the level of commitment and persistence that you're going to put towards this. And that's what I'm going to talk about on Clubhouse tonight, about what is your level of commitment? What is your commitment quotient? So Kamika had a commitment quotient that was like, it's like 100. Like, I'm gonna make this work. I'm sure there were some days it was like, oh, I don't know if I want to make this work. This is tough. It's not easy. If it was a walk in the park, everybody would be doing it. So you have to decide, what is your commitment level? How persistent are you going to be with your own vision, mission, and purpose? Number two, think about your brand story. So part of that is what inspired you to start the business. What stories shaped the brand? So for me, my brand story really was like long before it actually became my story. I didn't realize it was that I grew up next door to my pastor, and he was Reverend Joseph R. Jordan. Give his name out. He's gone on to be with the Lord. But he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I was young, like a teenager. And he would say, because I was always promoting things around the church. And I was always the one that would just like be the person like, hey, you need to come to this, or hey, you need to come to that. And I would just get people excited about marketing his message, right? Trying to get people to come and hear him, because I thought he was fabulous. And the programs that we had were fabulous. Everything we did was fabulous. So it was like, if just more people knew. That was my bend as a teenager. If more people knew, then we could fill this place up and we would be good. And so one time he said to me, he says, girl, he said, you know how to promote. He says, you're going to do PR for Jesus. And I didn't even know what PR meant. I was like, what? So years later, what would I do? In high school, I'm still doing kind of communications type of things. I'm still promoting things, even different organizations I'm in, they would put me in charge of PR. I didn't know. It was like, well, you'll be in charge of PR. Okay, whatever. Little did I know, once I went to college, I would major in PR and marketing. And eventually, I didn't know where I really fit. I knew that I liked the area, but I didn't really know where I fit. And it wasn't until I had an epiphany about 30 years old. And I said, I want to do something more meaningful with my life. If I'm going to do PR and marketing, I want to promote something that matters. Kind of like what my pastor said early on, right? When I was a teenager, that you're going to do PR for Jesus. So eventually, what did I end up doing? I ended up being director of PR for the Salvation Army. Can't get more, the keyword salvation, right? So I was PR director of the Salvation Army. So that's like my brand story. And eventually I stayed there for about 7 years till I had my daughter. And eventually I heard the Lord say, it's time for you to go out on your own and to work with people in your own community, which was really the Black church. Ministry Marketing Solutions was born in 2000. And I said, wow, okay. I didn't know what to do. I didn't see anybody doing what I was doing. There was like one other person and they were doing gospel stuff, but I didn't want to work with gospel music. I wanted to work with speakers and authors in mega churches. And so eventually I did. I worked with the mega churches in our area, Greater Grace, Word of Faith, Straight Gate, and that kind of thing. Eventually I went on to work with TD Jakes, Dr. Cindy Trim, and Dr. Miles Monroe and Alt Creflo Dollar. So that was just I didn't know it at the time at, you know, 13, 14 years old that that would be my destiny. But that was someone that spoke over my life. And that's part of my brand story. I'm proud of it. No one else probably has that. People say, well, why do you do what you do? It was really evolved over time. But I'm telling you, the first 5 years wasn't, I had no really blueprint of what I was doing. I knew how to do PR, but I didn't know how to run a business. So that's a whole nother day, whole nother story for a whole nother day about how to run a business like a business and not like a job. Okay. So the last part of really when you're deciding your brand is like, what problem are you solving for your customers? And so for me, the problem that I was solving is that I knew radio, TV. I had worked at the Detroit Free Press. I had a background in journalism. I was writing for newspapers. I did feature stories and magazines. I knew all of the marketing, how to really pull it together to put people out there because I had done it for other PR agencies. I'd worked for McDonald's. That's how I know so much about their brand. I worked for companies that did nonprofits, the African American Museum. So I knew different. Dunkin' Donuts was one of my clients as well. I did a whole lot of food. And so I said, the problem that I'm solving is that the same skills and knowledge that it takes to market anything, really you could use to market something that really will be more life changing. And I think that the organizations at mega churches and at that time, a lot of the ministries, they weren't even really on social media yet. They didn't know how to do a lot of stuff. I was like, Lord, I said, let me help you. And that was where my calling was. And so I worked with a lot of the major publishing companies, Zondervan, Thomas Nelson, Baker Revell, all of the large Moody Press, Harrison House, Harvest House, all the houses in terms of really putting together marketing and PR programs for their African American authors because they didn't know what to do with them. They didn't know their market. I knew their market because I was part of their market. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So that was the thing. So what problem are you solving? It's like I knew that those Zondervans and all of those publishing arms, they were primarily evangelical, and they didn't know the black market. And I was like, you know what, you all selling books wrong. You're not promoting the books properly to the right people because they didn't know the people. So that's what the problem was that I knew that I could solve, and that's how I built my brand. A lot of times they would have me come in and talk to them about how to really market to black people, to the black market. I call it AACM, African American Christian market. Yes. Hey Felicia. So that must be Felicia because it says it does. I can't really see what it just says Facebook user, so I can't really see who that is. So Felicia, so thank you. So I'm gonna give you really it's almost 9 o'clock. 10 quick ways to really accelerate your brand. Okay, so this is just like 10 quick ways. One of the ways, and we do this with the boss, we do with the Boss Network, is premiums. So whether she has a t-shirt, she has a coffee mug, that kind of thing, whether it's an ink pen, more than likely it's always like some kind of clothing, right? So you can make sure that you do that. Premiums are a great way to immediately build an affinity for your brand. The other thing is sponsorships. Like I said, if I know a company that an event that I go to and I see that a company is sponsoring that, it's like, oh, they have the same values, whether it's the NAACP dinner. And I see that if it's an NAACP dinner and I go there, and then while I'm sitting there, I'm going through the program book or whatever, and I actually look at the companies like, who are supporting the Black people? I'm like, I'm going to patronize them. That's how I am. So people look at those sponsorships. Yes, we could sell sponsorships, or even the insurance company, Felicia, what is Kamika, what's the name of the company that support Prudential? So if it's Prudential, I know they support an event for Kamika for the Boss Network. It's like, well, I'm gonna have an affinity towards them, right? So those are the kind of things. So sponsorships is another way to accelerate your brand. Even if you are a a solopreneur, you can still find niche events to sponsor. If you are like a local, just give me Sweet Potato Sensations. So Sweet Potato Sensations is in Detroit. If they just sponsor the football games for the three largest um, football teams, right? Buy the t-shirts or whatever, Cass, King, and Renaissance. All right. They do that. They still, the parents who know that they did that, you have an affinity towards that brand. Like, so if you ever need to go anywhere, if you need to get a pie, go to Sweet Potato Sensations. Why? Because they sponsored our event. Okay. Didn't cost a whole lot of money, but you just had to be strategic. The other thing is, this is one thing I want people to do, your outgoing voicemail message. Okay. So when people call you on the phone, make sure that you are leaving some kind of brand message. Leave your tagline. That could be cool. Leave your tagline and then leave your website, whatever. Don't just say, "Hey, I'm not here." Leave a message. It's an opportunity. You got somebody in their ear, give them your tagline. The other thing, goes along with voicemail because people don't call as much anymore, but your email signature. If you send me an email at pam@pamperrypr.com, when I reply back, you're going to see my email signature. You're going to see my Facebook, my Instagram, my YouTube. You'll see my signature. You'll see, it ain't like a whole page, but it is small enough. You'll see where I have like an electronic billboard and you'll see my picture. So use that. That's like one of the things. It's like the business card of today, right? We don't pass out business cards anymore because, we're just not out giving out business cards like we used to, but your email signature could work like that. Packaging is so important. A lot of times people will buy things because of the packaging. People like to carry a Nordstrom bag or people like to carry a Tiffany bag. It's the packaging. I bought some cookies the other day. I don't know what this cookies was like in this. It was only like 4 cookies, but the box was this big. I didn't even want to throw the box away. It was so cute. I forgot what these cookies were called. And it was just like bright and light. People will look at the packaging. So if you have a retail store, don't just think of a bag. I'm just going to buy some cheap bags. Make that bag worth something that people want to keep it. Make it a handlebar, whatever. It is part of your branding. The other thing is if you're going to do any type of video, like I'm doing a video here, and I just say that's for branding. So my bug in the corner is called Get Out There and Get Known. That's the name of my podcast. So that's in the corner. So that's like a bug. That's part of your branding. But also too, when you're typing your name on a Zoom, I always tell this to my branding accelerator clients. I said, put in your name.com. Put in your name.com. That way, because first of all, I have taught them to buy their name.com. So make sure that you do that. It's going to say your name, but it's put .com. So people, when they're watching you for half an hour or whatever, they'll go to your website. The other thing is community awards. Make sure that you are either giving community awards. Like if one of the things I think the Boss Network does, they do like awards where they're giving awards out to people. That's a really good way of getting your brand out there by giving out community awards. A lot of churches that I work with, they gave out community awards as well. And they may give it to like I think it was like a particular day where they give it out to the firefighters, police, all of the people who help within the city of Detroit. So they give like awards out to that. The other thing too is if you are a retail store and you know your lane and you really want to reach more people, influencers are a great way to do that. You can ship them free product and they will take pictures on their Instagram and it's like free advertising. It builds your brand. You just have to check out the people though. Check them out thoroughly to make sure that they have the values that coincide with your values because that's part of the branding process. So look at see what kind of pictures they have and making sure that their values line up with yours. The other thing is step and repeat signage. You know that, right? That's one thing that Black people, we know how to do our step and repeat. All right. Step and repeat is the stuff in the background where you're taking pictures and all that kind of stuff. So people love taking pictures of themselves in front of step and repeat. So make sure you have a large one, a nice one. And then the last one is talking about social media. Social media does build your brand. It can accelerate your brand, but I always say don't spend so much time on social media that it wears you out and makes you exhausted. You can TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and all that kind of stuff, but don't let it exhaust you. Just do enough of your content so that it's consistent, but don't let it wear you out because it can. And it can be an addiction and people are just like, what? So with that is like the last thing that I have. If there's any questions, let me know. You can connect with me, obviously, at pamperrypr.com. Ready, Set, Go Speak is a program that is for authors and speakers. It's a video. Go there and you can watch it about what's entailed in there. But primarily, I go in there once a month. You get a Monday marketing memo. You have a vault. My digital um, business acceleration is in there. A digital branding accelerator, I'm sorry, is in there. There is so much information in there, and you can go at your own pace. So that's like really like the place where you can go to learn everything instead of like running all over the internet trying to do stuff for free. It is very compact. If you do it, people who've done that have just really just taken off. I give media leads every single week. I show you how to pitch the media, how to build your platform, and any questions that you have, you could say it in the forum. It's a private forum, and we answer those. So with that, that's all I have. Any questions? Any comments? I am excited to be here. So thank you so much for having me. I hope that was helpful. Everybody gets a brand. Everybody has a brand. If you have a name, you get a brand. So you got to make sure you take care of it. And so that's it. So I see Kamika, Felicia. If there aren't any questions, yes, that's it. That's it for the Ready, Set, Go Speak. Exactly. That's it. Yeah. So that, and also to make sure that you download this current issue of Speakers Magazine, and the November one is coming out very shortly too. So that's a surprise cover that's coming up. So you want to make sure that you get that one as well for November. So with that, I invite you all. I'm going to be on Clubhouse in 10 minutes. If you want to meet me over there, I don't know if you all do Clubhouse, but I have a club over there called Speaker PR and Branding. So I've got to be there in about 10 minutes. So if you want to meet me over there, I could hear you. Probably you could see me, but I can't see you. So on Clubhouse, I could hear you. So if you go and get on Clubhouse, you will see me there. So with that, thank you all so much. God bless you. All righty. Thank you, Cynthia. All righty. Thank you, Kamika. All righty. Bye-bye. Good night. Thank you, Felicia.